I now call on the Honourable Minister for Financial Service to continue the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wonder if I could confirm the time remaining.
We're working on that right now, Minister.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, when I sat down earlier for the lunch break, I began to talk about the registry's introduction, the General Registry's introduction of online transactions, and I indicated that there were 900 active users, and that this technology...
Minister, sorry to interrupt, 1 hour and 3 minutes remaining.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The introduction of this technology had significantly reduced the turnaround time on services. So instead of waiting for 3 to 4 working days for regular service, clients can receive some certificates in 8 hours. The time for express certificates has been lowered from 24 hours to 4 minutes. All of this provides significant enhancement of services for those service providers within the financial services industry. There's another aspect of it, another feature, Mr. Speaker, which allows clients, users of this online service to redirect the delivery of their documents to their business partners, even if those business partners are not subscribers to the registry's online service. All of these features, the enhanced delivery times, are all very positive improvements on the delivery of service, which will continue to make our financial services industry efficient and a model of service delivery. The registry, Mr. Speaker, is also in the process of developing a client portal, which will very substantially improve the services which are available. And I have no doubt that this service will be readily embraced by the financial services sector, and in particular some of the smaller operators within financial services in Cayman. It will significantly contribute to a leveling of the playing field, so to speak, because for those operators who do not have the resources or the staff to develop their own portals can easily utilize this portal provided by General Registry. And it certainly will enhance and improve the level of service provided by those businesses in the financial services sector across the board. So it significantly elevates the platform of service for everyone. Yet, Mr. Speaker, the operational cost for General Registry will be lower in respect of providing this service. And we haven't provided any specific funding for this portal in the 14-15 budget, because it is effectively being done as a joint venture with a private sector entity, which has been involved with the government for some time. And this is indicative of the significant amount of enhancements to government services, delivery of service, that can be accomplished by this sort of approach without having significant cost elements to deal with by government. The next level of enhancement of the general registry system, including this portal, will be rolled out in a few months. So I don't want to say too much about it at this point, other than those high-level indications that I've made. But it will be quite significant. And I'm not aware of any other competitor jurisdiction which has this facility available. In fact, I think there are others who have contacted General Registry to see if there's a way that they can assist them in elevating the delivery of their services in a similar fashion. Of course, that's not likely to happen. Nobody gives up a competitive advantage that easily. Mr. Speaker, the amount that I'm requesting for DCI and the General Registry this year is $3.64 million. This will fund the continuation of revisions to a raft of laws, many of which I have mentioned earlier, including trade and business, liquor licensing, tobacco laws, special economic zones law, the local companies control law. It will allow DCI to again organize a small business conference, which was held last month. And that has become very useful and very popular amongst business owners. The funding will also provide staff who can provide technical assistance to new entrepreneurs who may have nothing but a solid idea for a business plan on the proverbial napkin. It'll also help some of the more seasoned business owners. And it will help Cayman as a country create a regulatory and legal environment that economists would recommend is necessary for a successful, thriving economy. And on the issue of the trade and business licenses and the provision of services to small businesses, Mr. Speaker, I think statistically, businesses, there's a high rate of failure in businesses. And one of the proven reasons for that is a failure to do effective business plans, to plan properly. And if we can, through the provision of advisory services with DCI, help small businesses to plan better, create better business plans, and understand exactly where their challenges are going to be and how to meet those challenges, we allow them a greater opportunity to succeed. We allow them a greater opportunity to be an active participant in the economy, to create jobs, and to be successful. So we need to improve the ratios so that there is a greater chance of success. Mr. Speaker, financial services and commerce takes place in a 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week world. It's global, and in this ministry, nowhere is that more clearly felt than in General Registry. We cannot tell a partner in a law firm in Hong Kong or the UK that Cayman can't process a transaction for a couple of days because we're in a different time zone or folks are sleeping just now. But improvements in General Registry also benefits local commerce. So if the online systems improves the transaction speed for the Hong Kong-based client. They also speed it up for those in Cayman, for the small business man or woman here. And the use of this technology improves the convenience and efficiency, and that's what we're seeking to achieve with the acceleration of government's government plans that my colleague, the fourth elected member from Town, spoke of earlier in greater detail. This is a platform that I think will accelerate, and I'm looking forward with great anticipation for the significant benefits that I think will be in place over the next year. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to the environment. It's no surprise that this is a particular passion of mine. The Department of Environment has ably protected the environment of Cayman, particularly the marine environment, over the decades. And I believe the people of this country are very pleased that, and I know the people of this country are very pleased that the National Conservation Law was passed last December. I am particularly pleased to say, Mr. Speaker, that this law will begin its implementation in the next few weeks, because we have been waiting on 2 amendment laws to be dealt with in this Honourable House, which are now tabled to be dealt with in this meeting. So I'm very hopeful that we can get those dealt with and get the law implemented and begin the process of fully protecting the environment of the Cayman Islands, both from a marine and a terrestrial perspective. I know the member from Northside raised this yesterday, and I can assure him I will share his joy in seeing that implemented, seeing that commencement order published in the Gazette. Not too distant future. Of course, the member was aware that the bills were being passed, or sorry, the bills were being presented for passage, and those were the 2 things that were outstanding in relation to the implementation of the law. Mr. Speaker, the DOE's spending plan includes finalizing and agreeing on a proposal to enhance the marine park system to continue the projects that were funded through the Darwin Initiative. Staff have also been requested to begin the implementation process, and funds have been allocated to implement the Endangered Species Trade and Transport Law, otherwise known as the CITES legislation. Mr. Speaker, that legislation was passed in this Honourable House in 2004, and it has never been implemented. However, we do have a deadline to implement that by June 2015. It is an acronym, that is CITES, for Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Flora and Fauna. The UK, Mr. Speaker, is a committed supporter of CITES, and it believes that it is one of the most important international agreements for global species conservation. So under the convention, each party is obliged to put in place implementing legislation to deliver the requirements of the convention or risk facing trade sanctions. Mr. Speaker, some may mistakenly think that CITES is just another environmental issue. It's not. It has the potential for very serious local commerce issues if we don't implement it at all or implement it properly. If we don't implement the law as passed in 2004, artisans will not be able to make and sell products derived in whole or in part from internationally listed endangered species, including conch shell and black coral. There are many local artisans who manufacture jewelry out of these items, Mr. Speaker. There are many who participate in the local craft market, who serve the tourism, the cruise tourism market in particular, and all of those will be affected negatively. There are other significant knock-on effects if we don't enact the law or bring the law into effect. Importers, for example, will not be able to supply restaurants and supermarkets with imported conch and lobster meat because demand will still be there from locals and visitors. The restaurants will not be able to obtain them, and through importation, and that will drive the poaching of our local assets to provide and serve this market. Of course, it will affect employment if our artisans can't sell their works. So there are impacts across the board. Artisans out of work, artisans unable to earn a living, restaurants losing money, impacts on our local marine assets. These are things that we cannot allow to happen, so we will be dealing with this issue in time for the implementation deadline. Now, in addition to CITES, in the coming year, DOE also plans to reactivate the discussions on and drafting of a climate change policy for Cayman for Cabinet's consideration. They'll be implementing the newly awarded Darwin project on the socioeconomics of marine turtle protection in the Cayman Islands. Continue working on Sister Islands iguana conservation and conduct parrot population surveys with assistance from experts from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The last point, Mr. Speaker, in relation to DOE is an important one, and that is that the department plans to conduct an economic valuation of the marine resources of the Cayman Islands. And I'm pleased with this because it underscores the connection between the economy and the environment. We say that frequently, that our islands are jewels. This tells us what the jewels are worth. Mr. Speaker, I would also, before leaving the Department of Environment, just quickly mention in the context of conversations that occurs in the public arena fairly often, or criticisms, I should say, which are directed towards the Department of Environment quite often. These criticisms come about because the department will always be seeking to give advice on how best to protect and conserve our natural environment, marine environment, terrestrial environment. I think there are times when the reputation, the credibility, perhaps even the qualifications of the DOE are brought into question by people who do not appreciate and do not wish to acknowledge the advice which is being given. But it is quite interesting that the DOE is very much recognized around the region for its level of professionalism, their level of scientific knowledge and skill, and the amazing amount of work that they have done over the past decades. This extends as far as the US Fish and Wildlife Service and the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, which I've had the pleasure of discussing some of these issues with some of their senior scientists. And they have, in no uncertain terms, given very glowing assessments of our Department of Environment, the staff, and the work that they do. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to say that I think it will be interesting to this Honourable House and the public that the Ministry, the Chief Officers and Department Heads have been planning their activities and preparing budgets differently over the last short time. Instead of staying trapped in the mindset of doing for doing's sake, which leads to a very inefficient process of simply updating numbers from previous years, they've taken a hard look at what the core functions of the ministry are, what they should be, and how best to allocate them or allocate the resources to those functions. And this work is paying off. Some activities have been discontinued, and it has certainly brought about beneficial changes in the way the ministry operates. Core functions, as I said, have become more distinct. That allows departments to focus more clearly on what's important and to collaborate more efficiently and effectively. Now, restructuring is not easy. Staff have had to work quite hard, even in circumstances where attendance at global discussions have been going on, for example, in the financial services area. And colleagues back in Cayman have had to work doubly hard to cover the services, provide the services to strict deadlines, for example, in relation to regulatory assessments and exchange agreements. Nevertheless, the staff in the ministry and its departments understand very deeply that what they do benefits the people of the Cayman Islands, benefits this country, the business owner, the investor, all of us. And I thank them for their commitment. Mr. Speaker, just turning to the SEGCs, the statutory authorities and government companies under the control of my ministry. Beginning with the Cayman Islands Development Bank. The bank has been conservative in estimating its loan loss provisions because of the nature of lending and economic conditions. And this has led to the bank reporting a net profit for the 10 months ended 30th April 2014 of 134,898, compared to a net loss for the previous year of 112,000. The bank has, I think as my colleague Minister Archer mentioned in his budget contribution, an amount of 4.8 million on fixed deposit, and that is expected to be 6.1 million by 30th June 2015, and that amount is earmarked to assist in repaying the significant loans which come due fairly shortly. For the year to date, the bank has approved $800,000 in student loans, and these are remarkable results considering the lack of capital that the bank has had, the shrinking assets, and a high, very high delinquency rate, particularly in relation to those funds which had been borrowed under the past administration. But they continue their cost-cutting expenses, and their financial position is certainly marginally improved. Mr. Speaker, in relation to the Monetary Authority, Cayman Islands Monetary Authority, the authority in this most recent fiscal year has collected more than 101 million in regulated entity fees for government. That was a significant increase above the 79 million, 0.56 for the prior year. Net income for the Monetary Authority was 587,000 for the 12-13 year, which was allocated to the authority's capital expenditures reserves. Just for clarity, Mr. Speaker, the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority collects a lot of revenue for the government. It is government revenue and not specifically entity revenue. So, in saying that they've had a $587,000 net income, that is not an accurate reflection of the value of the services provided and the net benefit to the authority or the country. Mr. Speaker, I think it's important to note that as of May last year, CIMA had signed 27 MOUs with European countries. That enables the continued marketing of Cayman Islands hedge funds throughout the European Union. In December of last year, the Financial Stability Board confirmed its designation of the Cayman Islands as a jurisdiction that demonstrates sufficiently strong adherence to international standards on cooperation and exchange of information. In its efforts to protect investors, Mr. Speaker, while retaining the Cayman Islands position as a leading jurisdiction for mutual funds, the authority conducted a survey of hedge funds' corporate governance practices, which has been detailed previously in this House, and that led to the enactment of the Directors' Registration and Licensing Law in the last meeting of this House. And I'm pleased to report that we are well on the way to having the regulations in respect of that law brought into effect very shortly, so that the monetary authority can implement that. And it is it will certainly be a revenue raising measure for the authority itself. As entity revenue, that will allow the authority to cover a fair bit of its costs and reduce the amount of contribution which government has to make to the authority in terms of purchased outputs. In relation to the stock exchange, Mr. Speaker, in the current fiscal year, it's introduced specialist companies listing rules and admission of companies to the official list under this regime. It has had expanded equity listings, launched, etc., which is the Deutsche Börse trading platform for trading equities, bonds, warrants, exchange-traded funds, and other instruments. They've also developed new listing rules for startups, retail funds, exchange-traded funds, shipping companies, forestry funds, and clean technology companies. For the coming year, its plans are to market new products introduced last year, continue diversification of a range of products and services currently offered, and develop new trading markets. It also intends to attract new broker members and listing agents, and will examine the feasibility of establishing a central securities depository system for clearing of trades locally. Moving on to the Maritime Authority, I know the member from Northside, Mr. Speaker, was particularly interested in our last meeting in the performance of the authority. And I'm happy to tell this Honourable House that amongst its successes, the authority can count on a turnaround of a loss of $377,000 for the 2012-13 year to an expected surplus, projected surplus, as at the end of this year, of around $500,000. So, Mr. Speaker, that is certainly a better than $800,000 improvement. They've also implemented, Mr. Speaker, new crew compliance documentation services in Singapore, broadened its network, surveyor network, to include China, Brazil, Philippines, and Australia. They've also implemented the Maritime Labour Convention of 2006. They are now certified, or have now certified, the majority of vessels on the register affected by this convention to ensure that Cayman complies with global standards. Mr. Speaker, some additional initiatives for Macy for the 14-15 year will include government's consideration of various initiatives to enhance Macy's business prospects. including allowing for the registration of cruise ships and for the implementation of a one-stop shop type of arrangement, which allows clients, for example, to obtain company documentation, radio station licensing, and a certificate of British registry, all through one of Métis's offices to complete vessel registration. Mr. Speaker, these accomplishments and plans of the SAGCs under the Ministry are intended to support commerce, support financial services, and continue to contribute significantly to government's coffers. We are working very hard to ensure that that is the case. I'm pleased to say that government contributions to these 4 SAGCs, which I have mentioned, have been reduced to CI 2.9 million, and they are contributing more than 101 million to government's revenue. Mr. Speaker, I am, again, for the record, proud of the work that the staff of the ministry and its departments continue to do as they implement processes that improve efficiency and effectiveness in support of Cayman's economic sectors, critically important economic sectors that provide major sources of revenue for public services. I thank them for their dedication and service, and I am pleased that we were in a position to be able to reward them in some way for their hard work with the 2.5% gratuitous payment, which has been announced. I'd also like to thank my colleague, Councillor McTaggart, for the important work that he has done in a number of areas, including chairing the FATCA Implementation Committee. The deadline in respect of having the necessary regulatory framework in place is imminent. But because he has ably led this implementation committee, I am completely confident that we have been put in a position where we'll be able to meet that deadline. I'd also like to thank my colleagues for their cooperation and assistance over this year. I'd like to thank in particular the Premier and the staff of the Cabinet Office and of course our own office. It's a privilege and an honor to have completed 1 year of service to this country and the District of Boddentown in particular. And I look forward to continuing our best efforts to make a real difference in the lives of our people. And so in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I end up where I began, by congratulating our country, that place which is our home and our lands, on a successful year, one that we can be happy about, and one that will motivate us to continue to do better, always, so that our children inherit the best that the Cayman Islands can be. This 2014-15 budget, Mr. Speaker, is a strong, balanced step in that direction. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? Final call. I acknowledge the honorable member for the District of East End.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I shall take them out of their misery. They wait here with bated breath for me to get on my feet. When the convention is that ministers speak first and tell us what their agenda is for the year, and then we debate it. But they wouldn't hear what Mr. Miller and I have to say. So I shall not punish them any longer. Because whether I say it now or after they have all spoken, it's going to be the same thing. Mr. Speaker, let me commence by looking briefly at the budget that the government has presented here. Their second budget, and whilst I can congratulate my good friend, and I trust that the government will not take that out of context now, the Minister for Financial Service, Finances. No, another one for Financial Service is Mr. Speaker. The Minister for Finance. Because I know he works hard, and I understand that his objective is to stabilize the government finances and to try and bring it as quickly as possible in line with the requirements of the FFR. And whilst, Mr. Speaker, I believe he is doing a good job with that, I believe that we should all recognize that we are not the only ones who are trying to do that, since this recession, this global meltdown that caused the recession some 7-8 years ago. And it is prudent for all of us to get back on track and ensure we are frugal in the running of a country. Not only the Cayman Islands, but everywhere, but in this case, it is our country, and we need to do that. Mr. Speaker, I should hasten to warn my good friend that a country success is not only measured by its balance sheet. Whilst it is an extremely good position to be in, there is a socio-economic measure that we have to intermingle into that success story. And Mr. Speaker, I must warn my good friend that I didn't hear any clamor since Monday, to embrace the budget, because it is expected that we by the people that we serve that we ensure the country is on good financial footing. But what I've been hearing is that Janet Jackson song, "What have you done for me lately?" That is what people say. And this is no disrespect to the Minister for Finance, nor to the government. It is necessary that we multitask and understand what our people are going through. Mr. Speaker, the governor, in her very bland throne speech, spoke of her experiences here with her people. And it ties straight in to what people, the masses, people in our country, not only our country, all countries, expect of a duly elected government. She says on page 3, on a personal note, since my arrival in the Cayman Islands, I've grown to appreciate and admire the character of their people. It is these people whom the members of this House are privileged to serve. Caymanians are welcoming, warm-hearted, intelligent, and proud of their culture. But increasingly, they are cautious. The onus is on government and on the members of this honorable House to be worthy of their trust. To do this, we must demonstrate by our words and actions that we have their best interests at heart. Oh, Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, those are good sound bites. Those are good sound bites that we must try to live by. We must endeavor to fulfill. Mr. Speaker, despite the government's best efforts to placate the people with their offerings in the budget, duty on fuel reduction, reduction in import fees for traders, the civil service getting a one-off 2.5% bonus, given the concessions for the country with small businesses. In spite of all that, Mr. Speaker, people are crying. People are hurting. And in the words of the Governor, Mrs. Kilpatrick, we have to demonstrate that we have their best interests at heart. Mr. Speaker, I have always contend that politics to the individual can be defined by three words: tangibility, measurability, and visibility. We are not getting those across to our people. Mr. Speaker, I know my good friend, the member from Northside, said he wasn't going to debate the Premier's statement. Well, it's, at the time, I believe you can't debate it, but that was last Monday. It is Friday. And on page 1, Mr. Speaker, the Premier says, last year we told the country that this government's goal was to put the Cayman Islands back on course, basing our plans on economic growth through fiscal prudence. Our mission has been to stabilize, prioritize, and energize. I think the charge has run out of the battery because I don't see any energy in the people to believe anything is in it for them. Mr. Speaker, we have a responsibility to make our people feel a sense of ownership, a sense of belonging, a sense of sharing in this economic miracle, albeit hitting a few bumps in the road right now. Mr. Speaker, the government, in its efforts to placate those same people, walk around Georgetown with a placard saying in 1 year they got 162 jobs for Caymanians. Mr. Speaker, I am going to answer that question and that statement for the people of this country. It is not enough. When this government took office, there was a question as to how many people were unemployed. It was somewhere 10, 11%, somewhere between 10 and 11% of unemployment, which equated into some 2,000 Caymanians. Mr. Speaker, 162 is not enough out of 2,000. It cannot be. It never will be. Mr. Speaker, increasingly, I am hearing Caymanians complain about the lack of opportunity in their country. Mr. Speaker, each of us in here, all 18 of us, have a responsibility to ensure that we do this right. Mr. Speaker, some 40 years ago, this miracle started. Mr. Speaker, my good friend, the Minister for Finance, in his delivery, said, and I'm trying to find it, Mr. Speaker. I don't want to misquote him because I'm sure he will not be too view me so too kindly about that. But he said, Mr. Speaker, in essence, I really need to find this, that page 1. Mr. Speaker, he said, we must recognize and acknowledge the mistakes of the past and then set about correcting them in a manner that minimizes the risk of reoccurrence. Agreed. Now, some 40 years ago, I believe he was talking about, when this economic miracle started, there may have been mistakes. Maybe he was strong in his words about mistakes. I would like to call them omissions or oversights. We have experienced double-digit growth ever since, in many years. At the time, Mr. Speaker, I don't think anyone in leadership in this country anticipated the kind of success that we were going to achieve. But they knew they had to prepare for the future, so they tried at least putting something in place. I want to say they omitted. There were oversights on their parts. And when we look at it now in retrospect, we can say it should have been done this way, it should have been done that way, to protect Caymanians, to ensure they enjoy opportunities in their own country. Mr. Speaker, I want to say we missed it then. For whatever reason, no disrespect to the Sir Vassal, bless their soul, Mr. Warren, and the likes, and the Jim Bardens, and it goes on and on. Mr. Speaker, the downturn in our economy since 2007 and the necessity now to rebuild gives us a perfect opportunity to get it right. And this government is responsible for that. This government has a responsibility to the people because they hold the reins of this country. They are the executive. Let not the opinion I saw in the news reporter today by one Dr. Livingston about a runaway executive be our legacy, and about the importation of the Westminster system and how we didn't, in the Caribbean, didn't do. Madam, Mr. Speaker, the Premier wants to know where we're running away to. I just want to know where he's running from. I don't expect that you are going to run any place. Just don't be a runaway executive that does not deal with what has to be dealt with now. There needs to be multitasking on the part of the executive now to ensure Caymanians get it right. Ensure, now that we are rebuilding, that we rebuild properly, that opportunities be provided for our people, that they are not feeling marginalized like they have felt for the last 20 years. Mr. Speaker, I tried that at the last Finance Committee in Canberra. I asked the other 17 members of this Parliament to join with me, and all of us sit down and look at the laws and the issues and the policies and the rules and everything that governs us, that drives us, right in the committee room. I begged. We agreed on it. We agreed to set up a working committee led by the Deputy Premier. To this day, we have not had one meeting. So don't tell me I haven't tried to play my part. Don't tell me I have not extended myself to help run my country. And I don't want to hear the government saying that again. Because I've heard it too many times that the government has extended its hand, its olive branch, and I swatted it away. Here the Premier again, but I have. Mr. Speaker, is the same Premier that is saying that we're not going to meet? I guess, because he holds the control. The Deputy Premier was supposed to call the meeting. The Deputy Premier came over here and asked us when we were available. The Leader of the Opposition too. And we told him it was up to those who were on the executive to decide when they could meet. This was October last year. November, December, January, February, March, April, May. That's 7? Doing pretty good with my counting though. 7 months. I have heard nothing. I don't want to hear again that I did not extend myself and took up my responsibility seriously. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, I requested of the Finance Minister, who was chair, to do that. The Speaker was there too, and we all agreed with it. And we all said that the Premier would do a press conference when we reached that point, and we would all stand behind him in solidarity, that that's what we were going to do for our people. That gives Arden too much credit. The people know today, though. Mr. Speaker, our people are hurting. Our people, Mr. Speaker, before I go there, let me say it was interesting and I enjoyed listening to the Deputy Premier, the Minister for Financial Services, the member from Georgetown, the fourth elected member from Bordentown. I enjoyed listening to them between yesterday and today about how the many things they have done for their constituencies. I really enjoyed that. Because, Mr. Speaker, that's what this is all about. being able to fulfill your political goals during your tenure. But it appears to me that East 10 has been put on an embargo. I can't get up here and say anything that has happened other than that which I have done. Or very little. That is not a good thing. That's not the way to win the seat in East 10. Do what I ask and take credit for that, and then you can win the seat. Mr. Premier, listening? That's how you do it. Do not punish me because you want the seat, and by extension, you're punishing the people. Our people are hurting. Mr. Speaker, I hear the member there asking if they have taken the decision. That's the Minister for, what that is, Health? Yeah. Same-sex guy. Mr. Speaker, I don't know if he remembers. I don't know if he remembers. Don't know. And Mr. Speaker, to my good friend, the Minister for Health, I only say that because I don't know what, I can only make some assumptions. He was a part of cabinet the 3 times that I have been there. And each time I went, Mr. Speaker, I didn't sit there and relied upon that between my ears to make the presentation. I left nice little presentation folders with each minister, and the governor, and the deputy governor, and the attorney general, and the clerk of cabinet, and the secretary of cabinet. My most recent one, since he say he is trying to find out from his colleagues when they decided to put a moratorium, political moratorium on the District of East 10, I would read the first page of my presentation to them. Madam Speaker, I wrote, Mr. Speaker, I wrote, Madam President, Mr. Premier, and members of Cabinet, please allow me to once again thank you for this opportunity to make this presentation to Cabinet. On behalf of the people of East 10, in accordance with Section 47(3) of the Cayman Islands Constitution, Order 2009. While I'm appreciative of the opportunity and your efforts to ensure I am given the chance to inform Cabinet on a regular basis of the needs of the people of my constituency as per the Constitution, respectfully, I must record my disappointment that there has been little progress on the several issues that I represented to Cabinet on my 2 previous visits in August and December of 2013. Accordingly, this presentation will primarily be a resubmission. You remember that? You read that? The most vexing issue that has apparently not been addressed is that of proper policing in the constituency. Residents are becoming agitated about the lack of police and the increased criminal activity in the district. Many continue to express disappointment in the lack of response from police. Drug dealers are openly selling and using drugs, and police are not responding when called. Residents are now refusing to call and threatening to take matters into their own hands. Certainly a situation that must not continue to exist. What am I to expect? What am I to assume if after a very long period, it's not like I don't keep papers. It's not like cabinet has not been presented with it. They know what the issues are. There are many, many issues that I brought to the fore. I also offered to deal with each minister individually. Mr. Speaker, I don't know the reason why the many issues have not been addressed. I make the representation on behalf of the people of my constituency. I am their voice. I am but one person. Remember, I must give credit where it's due. This government has invited me 3 times in less than a year. The previous government did it once in 4. But at least they were doing stuff trying to get rid of me. Even though they were giving it to Johnny, my opponent, here the premier say he ain't got to do that. Don't worry, he ain't got to do that. Mind, this man is threatening me every day with my seat.
Better be worried. A good candidate too.
Mr. Speaker, I want him to know that this is a 2-way street. The same street that he come in Eastern on, I come in Georgetown on too. And if you think because I am not worthy of being a part of those organizations that he's a part of, that I can't hold something until then, watch me. You watch me. And he, most of all, knows that I'm in my glory when that mic is turned on during campaign. He know that. He know that I got some currency in this country. He knows that. That's why I'm on the opposition bench. Yeah. I hope you don't start crying when you out there. You'll be home then. Thank God I'll be able to send you home. Good. Mr. Speaker, that's good for a little now and again. I hope people don't think now that there's an animosity between the Premier and I. No, I would not want the country to think that.
That's good.
I mean, you know, he has this between me and him, not between him and I. Because he has that I speak poise over my back, not me. I have nothing in my hand. But because he's threatening me, he's been threatening me now for 1 year. Boy, if you were to spend, Mr. Speaker, if the Premier was to spend as much time on assisting Caymanians as he spent on threatening me, what a country we would have. But Mr. Speaker, he knows that these little threads that are gone here are not shaking. He hasn't frightened me yet. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, going back, because the Premier is trying to distract me so that I can waste my time. He thinks he's smart, you see. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, let me get back to the subject on that is vexing to me, that is concern to me. And I gotta get back to the police, because where is his little report card? I need to get one marker for that. Yeah, I got F written on it in red. So I had to grade it, and I brought it out. I had to grade it. I graded it, of course. Mr. Speaker, and I will get back to the bold one-line statement in this little blue book, which says, Royal Cayman Islands Police Service, the reopening of the East End and Northside Police Station, and increased staffing to support the police in these districts. I'll get back to that one too. Okay? Thank you. Mr. Speaker, more and more Caymanians, particularly those who are coming back as young Caymanians, are finding it difficult to integrate into this society, to get opportunities to fulfill their dreams in their own country. I know the member from Bodden Town, the fourth elected member from Bodden Town, is aggravated by this particular subject, like I am. We like to say that they need experience. We like to say that they're irresponsible and we can't put them on the job, so they need to go someplace else to get experience. Mr. Speaker, no matter where they go, they're going to have to get the opportunity to get the experience. But here we are, young Caymanians, we are killing their spirits. We're killing them, Mr. Speaker. And I want to make this one straight. Mr. Speaker, I want to declare my interest here. I have a vested interest, a big one, in this. Mr. Speaker, this is personal. And I make no excuse for using my privileges to bring it up on this floor. No excuse. If the people of this country wants me, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine too. But I gotta survive in this country. And my family is going to survive. I have avoided saying anything about this for the specific reason that I expect that my family are given opportunities in their country. I expect them to work to get what their ideals, their dreams are. I expect them to do that. Like I have done. I expect my 2 children and all my nephews and nieces to live in their country. I hope, Mr. Speaker, that for whatever reason, my family is not targeted politically. And I ain't talking about the big P. I'm talking about politically. Okay? I trust, Mr. Speaker, that's not the case. Because we all have children, or we have grandchildren. Mr. Speaker, I speak specifically about my nephew, Darren McLean. I have avoided this for the specific reason to make him do this on his own. I wanted him to understand what it is to succeed without his uncle's political influence or any other influence I may have. But since we were on this subject, I can talk about it, Mr. Speaker. My nephew had a dream to be a helicopter pilot from time he was born, from time he could talk. It's all he ever wanted. The advent of the police helicopter compounded that in my nephew. My brother, his dad, went to the government of the day. And yes, he was given scholarship under the Nation Building Fund. I did not even know he had applied. Mr. Speaker, my nephew was successful. Notified all and sundry before he got back, before he was finished, of his impending completion of that course. Upon completion, the way my nephew was treated, I hope that never happens to anyone in this country again. Mr. Speaker, it is an abomination for the government, whether it's the elected arm or the civil arm, it matters not to me. Today, if it was anyone else's child, I would have to defend them. Time for me to defend my family. A family who has never held their hand out to any government for anything. And the one time a 21-year-old comes home, first Caymanian to ever qualify, and you got to tell me we don't embrace that? We don't embrace that? And we got 3 captains up there flying the plane, the helicopter. Mr. Speaker, there is no way my 21-year-old nephew can fly a helicopter and be in command of any helicopter. No way in the world unless he's in the army so they can send him go kill people. That's what they do. They fast-track their training so they can go into war to kill people. That's not in this case. There is no way my nephew could have been in command of any helicopter. But that's the excuse the government is making. Wrong. Wrong. He is no different from any other Caymanian in this country. So those who want to get up and speak afterward, I won't be here. Listen to them. Mr. Speaker, what they did for my nephew was give him a list of companies on the internet that he should apply to. All we wanted was for that child to join the police force as a constable so he could go up there, wash the plane and help him with maintenance, and every now and again he might get a little hitch ride on it. Every minister was written, and one responded. Minister by name of finances. You think that's fair? Is that what we do in the rest of our children? And I hear it every day. Every day. You say what you want, Mr. Premier, when you get up. He came, saw you, of course. You turn it over to one of your deputy, your chief officer, And he gave them a list of places to apply to. And all have children, you know. And they don't know where they're going to be. And they don't know what is going to happen to the children. I have never begged the government for anything, nor has either one of my children or nephews or nieces. Mr. Premier, you can tell the whole story. It doesn't bother me 1 minute. We have one side. Mr. Mr. Speaker? I can tell you how simple this is, that nobody even looked into. I can tell this country that if every one of my family has to die a pauper, that child will succeed. Watch how we do it. And I need to be careful, man. I need to be careful. I want to do this thing. Okay? It's wrong. It's wrong. By any stretch of the imagination, Mr. Speaker, it is wrong. Mr. Speaker, we have not stopped our efforts to get this child in his chosen field. We have applied to the Navy in England. He's awaiting a response for his acceptance there. We'll do what we have to do. Don't worry about that. On Thursday, me and government did nothing. Thursday, May the 29th. The JDF, in collaboration with the Canadian Armed Forces, have been operating a flight school in Jamaica at the Norman Manley International Airport since about 2007. This venture replaces the training that was once done by the Canadian government, CAF, for Jamaica. The school has been very successful and offers training to the highest international standard. It is regularly evaluated by the Canadian Armed Forces. I recommend it highly. They have trained international students. And I am sure, given the close ties between Jamaica and Cayman Islands, they would be happy to undertake training of military/paramilitary pilots for the Cayman Islands. It is not inconceivable that an attachment to the JDF Air Wing could be organized in order to facilitate the building of experience for the young man. I shall be happy to facilitate and contact between the two countries and the JDF in particular. Understand how easy it is? A Jamaican in JDF is helping my nephew. We need to start talking about finances and start looking at our people too. Mr. Speaker, it is wrong. And I can't accuse the Premier or his ministers of exercising their political might against my family. I can't do that. What I am accusing them of is passing it on to someone and then they do nothing, and the political arm does not do anything with that. And the political thing may very well be coming from somewhere else. Mr. Speaker, my good friend, the fourth elected member from Budden Town, spoke quite passionately here today, I believe it was this morning, about what people think of us, and those who are not from here in particular, criticizing us as legislators. Mr. Speaker, the first time I know that Lester McLean raised the teeth was when I come in here. I hope that my contribution to this country will be viewed by my people as being worthy. Could never be this is going to be the dividend that I'm going to reap out of giving up so much, like all of us. And my family in the future is going to be pushed out of the country that we have built, just like the rest of them young ones. Mr. Speaker, can you imagine what they're doing to them? Just for a minute, imagine. Darren McLean has an uncle who stands on the floor of the Legislative Assembly with some little clout and opportunity to speak about it. Can you imagine what they're doing to those who have no avenue to speak? And then they call those who look down upon us from foreign countries like the Jordanian, who wants to advise us on how to run our country, and we sit down here and allow ourselves dog eat dog? Is that what we are going to get? Is that what all of you young ones are going to get for giving up so much? So much bright future to make a contribution to your country? Will that be our ultimate end? And I need to think about it. This is my 4th term here. I hope to God I did something. This is your first. We only got 1 year yesterday. I hope that you will be here for a long time, not that I parted, but for a long time, to make your contribution. Are you going to get the same thing with your children if you just happen to come on this side? We got to think about it. When I sit down with my 21-year-old, and Mr. Speaker, he said he's not coming back to his country. Why? There is nothing here for him. I'm a legislator of 13 years. And I can't do anything about it. That means I have done nothing to energize my child. We need to get together and defend our people. A budget means nothing if our people are not a part of this country. It is for naught, Mr. Minister. It's for nothing. Absolutely nothing if our people are not a part of it. We cannot survive like this, Mr. Speaker. We cannot. country lives on in perpetuity. Why? Because of the next generation. And the next, and the next, and the next. We are doing a poor job in preparing them for the opportunities. They have become disillusioned. Not only because of us. Like the Minister for Finance said, this financial thing that we're in didn't start today. The mistakes didn't start today. It started a long time ago. Let us be the ones to correct it. Let us be the ones to leave a lasting legacy on the future of this country. Let us leave our footprints in the sand on West Bay Beach. We don't need no statues. Let us be the ones to lift this country. Let us be the ones to ensure provisions are in place to give Caymanians an opportunity in their own country. There is no other Caribbean country that a young man come home as a qualified pilot and the civil servants kick him out and refuse to make him be a part of it. Listen, DJ, you can speak on your turn comes to. I trust you well. Maybe he's not qualified. Maybe he doesn't have the experience. It is the responsibility of this country to get it for him, to assist him in getting it. I have a responsibility, his father does as well, to support that. And that we will do. But when he sees no future in his government, what do you want him to do? What is going to happen to him and the many others that feel that way? Let us put our backs to the wheel and deal with this. It is going down a slippery slope. And Mr. Speaker, the only persons that are going to suffer just happens to be the generation after us. That's what's going to happen. We are feeling it now. Many of you, your children are below 10. I don't know, 10, 12, whatever. In 10, 15 years, they're going to feel it. It just so happened my children, the last ones are 19, 21 or something like that. And one day, some of you will go back. After I'm long gone from here, according to the Premier, and research the handsets and find today, 1 year, 1 day after you were elected, after you were sworn in. You will find it. And you will wonder, if nothing is done, you will wonder why I could say that. It's personal experience. I have felt it. My children can't see the mountaintop. They cannot reach it if we continue like this. And yours are not even going to get out the valley. I see the quizzical look on your face, Mr. DG. I've been waiting to do this. I've been waiting to make my last stand in here. And today is it. The people, we who rise to the top, forget those who are at the bottom. And somewhere along the way, each and every one of you have had some experience of being at the bottom. Yes, like many of you, I grew up in a one-bedroom house, 7 of us. I know what it is for my parents to teach me how, through hard work, ethics, principles, integrity, to crawl out of those holes. And all of you know it too. Why? Why aren't we doing something to ensure that others get the opportunity to crawl out of the hole? When our parents in this country makes the necessary sacrifice for their children, and they come back here, and somebody steps on them. Not everyone gonna be as loud as I am. Not everyone is going to go out there and defend their children like I am. I hope their defense does not go further than them speaking up, standing up and speaking. I hope that never happens in this country. Because we are going to be the ones that feel responsible for it. We are going to carry some of that responsibility. Us, all 18 of us. Let's do it now. Let us do it now. Now is the time. We cannot waste 1 minute more. We must respond to their every need, Mr. Speaker. Here I was. The budget means nothing. I don't even have time. I congratulate the Minister of Finance. I don't even have time to go through it. It means nothing if we don't have opportunities for our children. We think because we're in here, that's an opportunity. That's a privilege, and we won't be here forever. The people saw something in us. Why can't we see something in those who are coming? Bring them. This is the only country in the world where they tell us we feel we're entitled to something. Yes! It is our country. We are entitled to it. Tell all those who say that I say, I'm entitled to it. My children are entitled to it. And their children are entitled to it. And so is yours and your children and their children and their children. It is an entitlement. I'll step out of here today. Don't think I'm getting in a hard time, Mr. Minister, Mr. Speaker. I'll deal with it. Okay? But if that happens today, 20 years from now, so be it. We have to defend our people. We have to stop isolating ourselves from the realities of the future. It is the writing is on the wall. And no matter, yes, you all are going to do what you can. Nobody came in here just come in to have it say. We all came in here with one objective: contribute and make our country better. We just need to remove the stumbling blocks that are preventing us from getting there. If that's the civil servants, then let's get rid of them. Hey, you hear the Premier said it's my last term. I only got 3 years, put up with me. We must start human revolution, not out in the middle of the street. We must put it in writing and leave it for our children. There's too much of it going on, Minister. Too much. We're losing a generation. We're going to have a brain drain. My little boy, I don't know if he's going to be successful in his studies. He's trying hard, he's doing pretty good. Kids say he's not coming back to a country that I tried changing, that I tried making provisions for him, and he's seeing that he can't come back to it. That is, I've been in Parliament more than this child has been alive, and he's telling me that. Longer than he has been alive, than half of, no, than. And that's what my child telling me. I wonder what you all got to tell you. That is younger than me, than mine. And they're plenty smarter too. Smarter than none. Because you can see mine smarter than me. He's seeing opportunities as well. Mr. Speaker, let me get off that because my nephew is going to be embarrassed and my sons are going to be embarrassed. My wife is going to, my brother is going to beat me up. I don't know. Of course, they didn't know going into this tirade, but it's not only on Darren's behalf, it's on all our children's behalf. Say what you all may. Don't bother me anymore. Mr. Speaker, I just need to. My good friends on that side know that there's nothing in me that wants to destabilize my country. Last man. And I know the same goes for them as well. This is just us finding the right balance. But it must be tipped in our direction. That's all. We are too envious of those who are successful as Caymanians. It's half of the problem. I keep telling people that I am not rich. Riches are to me like caffeine is the 7-Up. I never had it. I never will. But I know what I have. I have a deep burning desire for this country. I have a desire to live, contribute, and die in this country. I noted there's so many other things. The Attorney General the other day came down here with this Notary's Public bill saying that lawyers don't have to do any training. The Deputy Governor sends us a letter, as JP is saying, if you don't go do training, we got to take away your designation. Mr. Speaker, eminent jurists of this country. What I want to know? Adriana Webb, David Rich, I guess the Premier, I guess the Minister for Finance. You're not JP yet? You JP too? The Minister for Education, the Minister for, what is? Health. Eminent jurists in this country, just because of us, you know. No, this is a serious matter. Because the Note Republics impressed upon those, and in particular the Attorney General, that they didn't need it for no republic, but the Caymanians need it. And then, Mr. Speaker, it was pretty good for me, you know, because, you know, after the court, I only get called to all that thing. I don't know what it is to do that. I don't. So it was good for me. But I was embarrassed to know that Caymanians had to be subjected to that kind of abuse. Wrong. You hear what I tell you? It is wrong. Everything Caymanians do is wrong. We are nobody in we country. I had enough. Mr. Speaker, I had enough. Mr. Speaker, I see you have a motion on the floor for changing immigration thing. That got to be another subject. Yeah? Everything is we can't trust the Caymanian. All others come here, know it best. Mr. Speaker, I am open to advice, and I may seek it out of those who come to our country to integrate that to make our country better. But I ain't going to look for people whose country worse off than mine. Seek advice. I hear that Jordanian on the radio all the time. You really think I need his advice and he destroy one country down? I am not looking for him. There are many people in this country, 100 and odd nationalities, that has come from good countries, that has practiced good democracy. Jordan, I ain't no neighbor on them. But here I am. We can't do it ourselves. I see the member from Georgetown. Were you third elected? Second? Why are you on way up there? The second elected member from Georgetown. Big time accountant. I don't have an envious bone in my body for you all. Not one. I hope you make all the money. Mr. Deputy, this is our country. My son. What? You beat me up because I offered some training? Mr. Speaker, I don't want the DG, the Deputy Governor, to get too bad out of shape about me beating him up because he offered some training. I embrace the offer. I didn't like the way he went about it. You can't tell me that if you don't do it, I gotta take away your designation. Why don't tell them North Republics, that lawyers that? They come from Timbuktu, wherever in the Commonwealth. I never hear them tell them that. They went exempt them. That's my concern. My concern is that all these here lawyers that we have in here are Caymanians and get one little stamp for JP because of their standing in society. You know, they're threatening to take it away because they got to come train to see how sign a warrant. Don't kill the messenger. Kill the message that your people sent out. Okay? I'm afraid of that. And it sends the wrong message to us. We are not worthy. That's what it says. Someone else has to train us to make us worthy. Every one of them lawyers there, I would have called their name, but I'm not going to do that too much. Every one of them went through 4 or 5 years of school, do this. I don't know how long it takes on to go. I'm an engineer, I ain't no lawyer. You can tell me they don't know what to look for when there's a warrant? Huh? That's all I'm saying. These people know what to look for when they stamp every page on them documents and charging $25 for it, and they got 4,000 pages. That's what they know to look for. Them note republics. That's all I'm asking. Treat us for who we are. It mightn't have been me who created this miracle, but somewhere, some of us did. Right, Miss FS? Thumbs up. Mr. Speaker, immigration. Now that's a subject that we really need to address. I got a young man, a couple young people in East End, get married, 7 years. Apply for, well, they really run over a little bit. Their time, they're not looking for it, Mr. Speaker. They're not got no time to think about that. They try and get a little living, keep their family together. Run over the 7 years. And they're kicking the wife off. No, come on, man. What are people doing what? That's what we need to talk about. Forget about our budget for a minute. We get to that in Finance Committee. Okay? I was married to my wife 7 years. And when she applied, and I could read all the letters out. Here. But not today. But it were bad letters. But I could read it out so the people can hear. Why me saying financial reference, bank reference, that she wasn't bankrupt or insolvent. I thought that provision was to make sure I could have 2 incomes. Especially when my house bigger than mine. And I can understand Cayman status is something we bequeath upon someone else. It's not the other way around. Immigration has no say, not the board, in whether or not my wife receive it. It's me. Me. I am telling you to snap a passport. That's what I tell you. But you want me to show you bank reference? Bank? Not today, boo-boo. It's not happening. So you can talk about water and then round board table and then come outside and talk about it. No, boo-boo. You're not getting it. Can you imagine what they're doing to the Caymanians with it? I tell you, one in East End, they want to run his wife off the island, stop her from working. She went over a little bit. We have to have some flexibility for our own. Somebody come here, my wife had waited 7 years. 7 years, no. Yeah, 7 years, but we were married a little more than that. No, the thing wasn't. Anyway, I'll get that straight. She had waited 7. Someone come here and get a residency and marry the same day. They didn't get it. He or she get it to another foreigner. They wait 1 year and they get naturalized. On the real thing, that right? Eh? This is about us. All I'm doing today is impressing upon you all the problems we're having as a people. I don't have anything against one foreigner that come here. It is not my job to make provisions for him or her. It is my job to look out for the Caymanians. Whether I can get it through birth, I can get it through Mickey 1 2003, or I can get it through applying for it. Once you get it, then you're mine. Prior to that, my business with you. What you want me to do, make provisions for somebody in Timbuktu and don't know whether or not he come in here? No, sir. You got to come first. Oh, Lord. Mr. Speaker, I got so much down here, I don't know which one to start. Look at the legal practitioners bill. Couldn't you be on to bring that the way it is so that Caymanians are disenfranchised again? No, don't bring that one, yeah. That one is going to cause some problems. Everybody wants to outsource our law that has been painstakingly put in place to help our people. Then we put a law school down, we brag about the success rate of the law school, and as soon as you get out of law school, we outsource the law, and you'll be a librarian now. Oh no, Bobo, that ain't gonna happen. Why are we pandering to everybody but our own, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, I may sound dramatic, but it's a fact. It is a fact. We are losing our country. Our people are slipping through our fingers. We need to close the gap, Mr. Deputy Premier. You know it too. You think I don't know you know it? Yeah. I know you know it. It hurts me. I cringe. I go home every night and worry about it. Before I go to bed at night, I worry about it. What is going to happen to us? Mr. Speaker, the people come, and yes, we embrace them and let them come, because when we don't have sufficient, then we need to bring someone. But don't tell me it's at the expense of all others here. They changed the rules on you. We are allowing it to happen. We are allowing it to happen. Because they have offices elsewhere, they want to change our law now, Senator Otis, or in practice, and want me to legitimize it. Tell them to come here. Mr. Speaker, I spoke earlier. I said earlier that all those others who got up and talked about their successes in their communities. Let me spend the rest of my time on East End, you see, because I represent them too, and I need to multitask.
You have 35 minutes.
35, up like that. Yeah. Yeah. Can I give you about 50%? Mr. Speaker, I read what I said to Cabinet, and then I read what the Premier delivered here in his blue book about the East End. I told this governor she must stop listening to them sound bites. Now I got to warn the Premier to do the same. Stop listening to sound bites, man. Mr. Speaker, in the interest of that buzzword, transparency. Mr. Speaker, after I went to Cabinet, the Commissioner of Police called me. The news was good for the constituency of East End. In that, he was reinstating Mr. Davis Scott, who was a good police officer, and we're putting 3 or 4 other people with them to be the intervention members of the force in that community. That's besides who's supposed to be police, the normal police complement. Mr. Speaker, I know I had begged the Premier on bended knees on the 21st of November to get more police. I had been to Cabinet a couple of times and talked about it. So, Mr. Speaker, we believe, and that those officers would take care of East and North Side. We believe that we too have a responsibility to promote and support the police. But I can tell the Premier, I don't know if he was talking about when he said the reopening, if it was next year or further down the year or whatever. He didn't put a time, but I can tell him, Mr. Speaker, that, and I would invite all of you. Let me read the letter that Mr. Miller and I have been using in support of our officers since we are getting officers there. East End and North Side Police Resources. Over the last few years, the residents of East End and North Side have called on their representatives for more policing in their communities in order to curb the increase in deviant behavior, protect their property and families, and preserve the marine environment. Representatives have implored successive governments to provide additional police officers and the requisite asset to facilitate this. Historically, governments have been slow to respond. However, we have now made some headway. The current government and the Commissioner of Police have committed to provide additional officers to be stationed in East End and serve both districts. In order for this to be effective, the communities have to lend their support in tangible ways. We believe that this must include, 1, a Toyota 4-wheel drive truck, estimated cost $27,000 less duties. 2, wave runner, estimated cost $12,000. Patrol boat, estimated cost $12,000. That has changed now, that gone up. Upgrade of both police stations, that is power washing, painting, landscaping, estimated combined cost $10,000. We anticipate that these funds will be raised through monetary donations from residents, businesses in the communities, and the broader Cayman Islands. Community fundraising, example food sales, and sweat equity. That's what I'll come to in a little bit. The Minister of Finance has committed to waive the duties on the required asset. Since then, the Minister has sent me a letter, email, confirming that. The assets will be vested in the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service, and the Commissioner of Police has committed to provide operational and maintenance costs. The waterborne assets will be used to protect a once fertile marine life that is in jeopardy of being decimated by poachers. The truck will be utilized to haul and launch these assets for patrol and intervention between East End and North Side. The proposed repairs to the police station will be community projects undertaken by the residents. This community outreach is being spearheaded by the district representatives. The purpose of this communication is to solicit your support for this endeavor, which will confirm the community's support for police officers and the rule of law. Any financial assistance that can be offered would be greatly appreciated. If you wish, acknowledgement of your donation may come in the form of corporate logos displayed on the assets. For further discussion or to make your donation, please contact either Art McLean or Ezed Miller, whose respective contact details are set out above. Now I can report that the wave runner is bored, the boat is bored. We got a truck pull off the lot behind behind the dealership, just waiting for a couple more checks to go over there to deal with that. Mr. Speaker, I now extend a hearty invitation to all my ministers, all the government, to come tomorrow morning between 6 and 7. We go on landscape, we go on power wash, we go on paint, we go and eat food. And I know I was like that. I'm the Minister for Health like that. And we're going to set up a tent in the parking lot. And we got, the NRA has given us the topsoil. So we're going to spread it out. We got to put in sprinkler system. We got to put in landscaping. This is East End Northside coming on the weekend of the 16th of June holiday. And that's our contribution. I can't expect to pay lip service to it when the government has made their contribution. It is our job now to cook up little chicken and rabbit and rice and have a jolly good time while we're doing it. And rebuild a relationship with our police officers in the district and the likes. And I think that's fair. So in the PPM achievements, they need to sort of acknowledge that we are part and parcel of it as well. Mr. Speaker, much of the things that I have asked for in the District of East End is not forthcoming. I see the Deputy Premier Minister for Tourism spoke quite passionately about the success of Tortuga Club, and Mr. Mora and Mr. Miller, who manages the establishment, and I understand that, you know, the government has to take credit. However, I can only say, Mr. Speaker, that based on my information, since 2013, that establishment contributed $1.2 million in duties to the government. So it is extremely valuable to this budget. It is extremely valuable to the tourism product in this country. East End just happens to be host to the largest timeshare in the Cayman Islands, in the Caribbean, most countries, and it's the best one. It just got the award for that. imploring my good friend, the Minister for Tourism, to assist. I believe there are certain duty exemptions that were promised. And my only hope is that this government assists in that regard. The minister is right. It provides an avenue for employment for the last 50 years in that community. And Mr. Morris has to be applauded for carrying on that legacy over the last 25 years. Mr. Speaker, the least we can do is make a contribution to assist them. I'm not saying give all concession now. Oh no. You know, I was never one for that. But, you know, we have this situation where Mr. Dart loaned us Monobill Road, and the repayment is that he is going to get 50% cut. He never gets no money, you know. I told him this was not a for Cayman Alliance. This was also for him. And he is getting 50% of his duties cut. So to the minister, on his accommodation tax. So to the minister, I would make a suggestion. He is responsible for excise, for duties, fees, what have you. Bring a motion, bring a bill to increase the accommodation tax by 100%, and then give everybody 50% off. And you would have fulfilled your contractual agreement with him. That's all. I'll support you. Mr. Speaker, I see where the government spoke about the Shadow Hospital. And I know my good friend, the Deputy Premier, keeps telling me that East End, man, East End is booming hard. What you complain about? Can't boom as much as Cayman Brack do. Cayman Brack really booming, at least with concessions. Mr. Speaker, I don't know, I heard my good friend from Northside say yesterday about something about the Shetty targeting cynical overseas referral. Well, not all the time, my friend and I agree, you know. Not all the time. We are not co-joined at the hips. What I can say is, if they can get that and give us a 20% cut of what we are doing now, that's an improvement of government finances. So I would welcome that, I believe. The Minister for Finance can use that to shore up his budget. Mr. Speaker, I believe there are many things that we can be proud of in this country. Many opportunities that are presenting themselves. We have to be careful how we do it. I heard the member from Georgetown talk about the fifth, I believe he is fifth. Talk about solar. I caution us all, because I believe in this honorable house, I have as much experience, if not more, than anyone else. I caution to hasten slowly. That's without defending any producer, whether they are now or in the future. Mr. Speaker, one of the things that we need to pride ourselves on, the electrification of this country. Albeit expensive, it was extremely expensive, a little cheaper now. We need to be very careful. The financial industry and success of that industry was hinged, has been hinged, on cable and wireless and the electrification companies, CUC. If we didn't have a good electrification system in this country, or a telephone system in this country, woe be unto us in the financial industry. We would never have succeeded. Go to the East Caribbean, why you think people were not attracted to many of those countries? Because of their lack of proper electrification. That's what it was. We hear the government talking about changing time to daylight saving time. That is minuscule. If we cannot, in our offices as lawyers, accountants, and management of people, business from overseas, if they didn't feel confident that they could pick up the phone and call you, or that you could fax out or email out something to them on the click of a finger, they weren't going to come here. Time is money for those people, and that's how we were so attractive. Because of the time, or efficiency, or effectiveness. And that came as a result of the electrification and the telephone in this country. That's how it was developed. Be careful with this alternative energy. Mr. Speaker, there is somewhere between where we are now totally dependent upon fossil fuel and where the proposals are on the table to go 60-odd megawatts that we need to be. Somewhere in between there, 10, 12 megawatts, so we can rely on it during the day and try to knock off some of the cost of electricity. But when we start thinking of it as firm power, what we gonna do at night? At night, we either have to have fossil fuel to burn, or we got shade power. And when we'll have power sharing, and when the days are cloudy and gloomy, what we gonna do? Which office building we got cut off in town? Eh? That's what we gonna do. Be careful. Those who bear these gifts that come to you. Mr. Fifth elected member from Georgetown, you be careful. I'm not saying I have the authority on it, but I've been in it about 30 years now too, involved in it. We have to be very careful. You remember when Obama came into office? One of his things was that he wanted to get America, reduce America's dependency upon fossil fuel. And his goal was to go to alternative methods of electrification. And he committed $1 billion or something like that for the development of batteries. We already had the solar panels and that technology. We don't have the batteries. We cannot store the power from it. It's too costly. You cannot make this country dependent upon alternative energy. Everything has a price. And if you're going to do it, it's going to cost this country an arm and a leg, Mr. Speaker. Are we prepared for that? Fine, then let's go. Mr. Speaker, let me just say, I noticed the Minister of Agriculture isn't here. I spoke to him on a number of occasions about the division of that land in East End for farmers. And it's been 1 year now, and he's saying I'd set up a committee. So what I did recently was I made a register and went to the people of East End. So there are people who are putting their name down on it, and I'm going to send that to the minister to see if what he can really do, so that at least he'll have that in his hand and see how many people wants to do farming on that government property. However, let me get the government blue book. On page 13 of that blue book, about fuel, the government signed a memorandum of understanding in April with Navasota regarding the possible establishment of a modern bulk fuel facility. Now, Mr. Speaker, I look around this house, and there isn't one person in here who sail on bulk carriers other than myself. Fuel bulk carriers. Quickly, let me give you a classic example of how risky it is. I arrived out of the Persian Gulf, and I'll tell you why I'll never forget it, the dates. I arrived out of the Persian Gulf to Bantry Bay, Ireland, with 2.5 million barrels laden University Iran on the 23rd day of December, with the intent of paying off that day to spend Christmas with my mom. When we arrived there, they changed orders. Bantry Bay was a transshipment port. Nothing but the bulk storage tanks on the shore. And we had a manifold docking facility. Mr. Speaker, when we arrived there, they changed orders on us and said we could only lighten up. So we would lighten up to 50 feet draft as opposed to 83 feet draft and go into Holland and finish on load. So if you cannot pay off on a stop before your final destination. So I had to pay off in Holland. And I paid off on the 26th day of December, Boxing Day. So I missed Christmas with my mom. I made many friends in Bantry Bay during my time there as a young man sailing, bringing in bulk fuel. Mr. Speaker, I didn't arrive to Cayman until the 31st day of December, 1978. When I got home, I called my friends and told them I was home. The installation opened back for business on the 3rd day of January. And 6 o'clock that evening, it went sky high. And we lost 40-odd members on those ship, the smaller ship that was taking on what we had pumped ashore. and the people on the dock. I'll never forget that. We're walking on thin ice, talking about fuel. And what we were carrying with Bunker C, what we're talking about here is even more volatile. Gasoline, diesel. Do we know how volatile this is? And the handling thereof? And the risks that we have to mitigate? I understand we got to bring it in out there, but we're not putting it back on ships. Therein lies the risk. But I said all that, say, Mr. Speaker, that I understand they got to use that piece of land up there in East End, the 200 odd acres to put the bulk storage on. This is Roma. That's why I said the minister should get up and say it. But I also understand that the proposers of this were told not to talk to me. Hello. And the Toll Line Wood project, the same thing. I was talking to the Ironwood project developers a year before the election. As soon as the election came along, they disappeared. I've not seen them since. It's wrong. Anyway, we shall see what happens.
Honourable Member, you have 9 minutes.
All right, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, may I implore the government? I see the Premier is not here, and he's responsible for social services. But I'm sure he's listening. May I implore him to assist the people who are on social services? Too many people are complaining to me that they are not being attended to. Too many people are complaining that the social services has gone out there where they can't find them. And they believe that there's a deliberate act. One side of it has gone out on the waterfront amongst the tourists. And of course, people put their own interpretation to it. And they believe it's a deliberate act to get away from the people. And I believe, whilst I try to diffuse that by telling them it's a matter of dollars and cents, that can't be, that's not being received very well. Mr. Speaker, I asked the government to look into the several things that I have asked them to do in the constituency. Now, one of the things that I have to do is to play a part too. I am doing that, starting tomorrow with the police station. I believe, Mr. Speaker, that we all have a responsibility if government provide these facilities to try and help support it. But there are many of those that the maintenance thereof, I mean, ask about the maintenance of these buildings, nothing is being done. Or at least, not that I see. It don't make sense to have all these facilities, these structures, this infrastructure, and leave it and let it die. It just doesn't make sense, Mr. Speaker. I know one of the most concerning aspects of it and calls for something to be done is that of social services. I believe that, I don't know whether it's the lack of money or resources, it's scarce and the like, but it needs to be looked into. I believe that at one stage, one government had satellite office in Bodden Town. That has now been closed down, I believe, and they merged everything into Georgetown. It's difficult. If we're going to provide a service to our people, let's do as much as we can. What we are doing is, in the interest of the financial aspect of the country, we're cutting those services. Or we're making them less accessible. Mr. Premier, I implore you, go back to England and stop worrying about 2016 to become compliant. Let's make this a longer period so that we can do 2 more years. What's wrong with going from one government to the next? You will have done your part. And maybe go over a little bit. You never know. But why are we trying to crunch all this thing down? We are doing this on the shoulders of the private sector. We're cutting the fuel for CUC, but we're not cutting it for the little small trucker out there in the street. And we want him to go up there on that road to do trucking. And the big job that was done recently, all this you all don't know. They have cut down the cost, the value of aggregate to the point where the little small truckers are getting about 50% of what they were getting 10 years ago. And the fuel cost is up. You need to check it out. Mr. Deputy Premier, you know what I'm talking about. That road down there, the cost of aggregate has been driven down, and as a result, the cartage has been driven down too. And that's where our little small businesses are. And their largest cost is diesel. That's where their costs lie. So we need to look at it. Somehow we need to bring that back down to where it was. What was it, 60 cents? It used to be 60 cents. It's now 80, right? Something like that. And it used to be 60. No, that's for CUC. I'm talking about for the gas stations. That used to be 60. The previous government took it up to 80. Let's just bring that back down. It might help. You know, and I applaud you all for trying to cut that off CUC. Unfortunately, we couldn't go to 4 or 5 cents that previous deviant government put on there after I had cut it by 20 cents. You know, we don't understand the value of these things to people. But unfortunately, you all are not doing it until the cool season. You don't need it then. That's when you least need it. You need it summer, 1st of July. But of course, I understand how that is going to throw the budget out of whack, and you do it in small bites. I understand it's 8 million. It was, when we took off 20 cents, it was about 6 or 7, something like that, million for us. But Mr. Speaker, it's nevertheless commendable. And I'm not saying this to avoid any licks from the Premier. I hope he doesn't get that impression. I am prepared to take anything he can throw, including a bazooka. Yeah, I got tightened up, but I did what I had to do with you too. So Mr. Speaker, Finance Committee will be another day. There are many things that needs to be ironed out in that Finance Committee. So I would advise you, Mr. Premier, to tell all the other 6 ministers, tighten up. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. We have now reached the hour of 4:30 p.m. I now call on the Premier for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, it's been a long, hard week and a particularly long day. I don't believe that members of the House can bear much more after that last contribution. So I will move the adjournment of this honorable House until 10 a.m. on Monday morning.
Thank you. The question is that this House do now adjourn until 10 a.m. Monday, the 2nd of June. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. This Honorable House now do stand adjourned until Monday, 10 a.m., the 2nd of June.